What's going on, fam? Welcome back to the channel. I have an awesome 1 month review of the Tekela V4 for you guys today. All right, fam, so hopping straight into the video, these are an amazing pair of football boots. We are gonna talk all about specs, and I'm gonna rate each part of what this boot is. New Balance have done an absolutely fantastic job in making these, in my opinion, the best laceless boots on the market, bar none. There's nothing even close to this. So these ones are a bit, you can see some scuff marks and some of the gold plating is coming off. There's some scuff marks here. I've worn these in training sessions. I'm a little bit skeptical about wearing laceless boots, even if these are that good in games quite yet. I haven't really gotten the confidence up to do it. I just like laced boots. That's kind of my preference for matches. But for any sort of 11v11s in training, these have been excellent football boots. So I'll pop this one down and we will start talking about, let's go upper first. So this is a full hypo knit upper. You guys can check out all the tech specs in my review video that came out about a month ago now, just over a month ago. And this hypo knit upper is incredible. It is such a seamless sensation. You put your foot in and the laceless system right down the middle here, it's a little bit off center, closer to the medial side of your foot, really does a good job at stretching and then wrapping your foot in a super personalized manner. I've spoken a little bit to Michael as well about this boot because he was able to go to New Balance and talk to them about what this actually was about and what this boot represented for the brand. And it's really cool to see that two different players, I have a much wider feet. These are the wide feet version and he's got the regular fit version, and regardless of which ones you actually get, it's a fantastic boot for any sort of foot shapes. And I would recommend, if you have excessively wide tank feet, maybe the wide foot version isn't quite fit for you necessarily, but I will say overall as an upper, this is an exceptional feeling upper. It's honestly incredible. I'm so happy with the way that they offer kind of a hybrid between a Magista Obra 1 and 2. It's more like Magista Obra 1 in the way that it's kind of thin, but it's also very, very Predator Freak pluses. That's what I'm thinking of. Predator Freak pluses with their knit material in the upper. It's kind of a combination between those two, and so it really does do a really nice job of stretching. As you can see, super, super soft. I've worn these a bunch, so they are obviously broken in already, which makes sense, but it also offers a little bit of a padded sensation while being a little bit barefoot. So for me, this upper is just insane. I actually really appreciate how in the collar area, they've made the collar a lot smaller than you might think. Like this opening is actually quite a lot smaller than, say, the Magista Obra collar or the Predator Freak collar, where it was much more open, or it was a two-piece construction in the Predator Freak model. But because this is a little bit more snug, it really wraps your foot and wraps your ankle in a way that makes it a seamless sensation between your foot and the boots. It really feels like you've got nothing on your feet or you've just got a second pair of socks on. And that is really what excites me and makes me super stoked about this boot, is because it really does feel like a second pair of socks. So that is fantastic. This upper for me, even though it's not, we'll talk about lockdown in a little bit, but the upper, just the way the upper feels for me, is an 8.5 out of 10. It is an exceptional upper. It's not as thin as I usually go for in a match boot, but it is so good. Would recommend for anyone looking for a little bit of padding, but an incredibly adaptive fit that really doesn't allow any space around the foot, in the sense that it wraps your foot in all the little nooks and crannies of where your foot moves and is shaped. So 8.5 out of 10 for the upper. Let's talk about the heel area now. So for a lot of laceless boots, that's where you find the issue. Whether it's the Speed Portal, the Speed Flow, even the first generation Ghosted series, all of those, including the Freak and some of the other, even the Copa, have a little bit of slip in the heel area. And the heel construction, although it is pretty good on a lot of those models, isn't as good as this one. This one wraps your foot so nicely. It gives you such a good lockdown in the heel area, and it really does a good job with some of the synthetic padding. Maybe I can show you guys what that looks like. So there you go. So there's a little bit of padding. Sorry, that's not as descriptive as I thought it would be visually, but there's a really nice padded heel liner in there that does such a nice job at wrapping your Achilles and making sure that your foot feels like it goes into the back of the heel in this area right here, and it really does a nice job of wrapping your heel and holding it in place. So for me, the heel area, the comfort is definitely an 8.5 out of 10 as well. I think it does a fantastic job. It's not the most comfortable heel and the most seamless sensation on feet, but it is really, really good. So I love that. 8.5 out of 10 for the heel area. Building on the heel, we're going to talk about lockdown. That is something that a laceless boot usually falls somewhere in the anywhere between 4 out of 10 to 7 out of 10 at best. These are crazy. And if you haven't tried these on, I would highly recommend you try these on before you try on something like an X Speed Portal. We're talking just current generation here, but X Speed Portal, they're far better than, I mean, they absolutely blow Predator Edge Pluses out of the water. They, in my opinion, blow the Copa Sense Pluses out of the water. I do like the Speed Portal, but I like the feel of these better. I like how much more raw and one-to-one these fit on feet than the Speed Portal. The Speed Portals are a little bit plasticky. I did find that the Speed Flows were slightly more one-to-one sensation with the upper, but the Speed Portals had slightly better lockdown just because of how thick the uppers were. This is, you've got all of that. So you've got a little bit of padding, but it does feel super barefoot because of how sock-like this upper is, and the lockdown is actually exceptional. It's really, really good for a laceless boot. Some of that also comes down to the Soleplate, which we'll talk about later, and this stud pattern, which is super unique and based on a lacrosse shoe. So we'll talk about that in a minute. This upper, this lockdown, for a laceless boot, this is going to be pretty high, but just in general, these are actually amazing. I don't get any slippage coming from a laced model, even something as good as a Hypervenom Phantom 3 that fits my foot like a glove. These are really good. For me, these are an 8 out of 10 on lockdown, which for a laceless boot is out of this world. It genuinely is out of this world. So fantastic, fantastic football boot. Well done, New Balance, on the lockdown with a laceless boot. Honestly, I'd just keep it like this, make super minor switches as they move generations into the version 5, version 6 or whatever, but it would be a shame if they screwed this up because this is an exceptional football boot. This is really, really good. Now let's move into the Soleplate, which I spoke to you about a little bit earlier. So as you can see, you've got a normal stud pattern, but then you've got these extra studs here on the outside. And what those are is those are actually based on a lacrosse shoe. And the lacrosse shoe has extra studs because, I don't know if you know this, if you're from Europe or another country, lacrosse is a game we play. They have sticks and there's a ball in the stick and they do like it's called cradling, where they cradle it and they throw it into a net. It almost looks like field hockey, but it's all in the air and it's a little lacrosse ball. Anyway, point being, for those of you who know what lacrosse is, I'm just telling you redundant information, but lacrosse is actually the sport that New Balance found pivoted the most. So the sport that wears cleats or boots, if you will, studded boots, that pivots the most. They have the most change of direction. So New Balance thought, why not apply that to a football boot? Brilliant, like genuinely brilliant. This Soleplate is so seamless onto the ground. It doesn't have a crazy amount of snapback. Like I'd say the snapback is pretty average for a Soleplate, but the thing that stands out about this is how stable you feel moving side to side and the ability to pivot and switch directions super fast. There's absolutely zero rollover, and especially when you have mostly conical studs, I find that in the New Balance 442, which I've done a 1-month review and obviously an unboxing video on, that has a very, an actually pretty similar stud pattern to this. It's a little bit less aggressive because it is their base $130, like entry level shoe. But you get a little bit of slippage of the Soleplate because there's not those extra bladed studs on the outside. And what that does is it allows you exceptional rotational energy while also giving you, when you stick your foot in and you pivot going the opposite direction. So if I was to touch the line and then sprint out the other way, or however, if I was defending side to side, whatever, this gives you one of the best lateral stability I've ever experienced in a shoe. I genuinely mean that, especially in that forefoot area. The heel area is very, very simple. It's just the kind of 4 semi-conical studs right here. So nothing to write home about, but to be honest, the heel doesn't really matter that much because most of the time you're up on your toes and pivoting on your toes. So for me, this Soleplate, this is gonna be crazy. This Soleplate for me is a 8.75 out of 10. Like very, very good. It's not quite a 9 out of 10. 9 out of 10, you have to be like in the top 3 or 4. But these are amazing. The Soleplate is so good. I think this Soleplate is better than the Furons, but that's just my preference. I tend to like a little bit more conical studs in my boots just so I get a little bit more pivot power, but that's just a personal preference. So 8.75 out of 10, fantastic job as New Balance incorporated these extra studs on the side, which is such a unique touch, but so research driven and well executed. I think that's the thing that really blows me away about these boots. So fantastic. The colorway, let's go launch colorway, and then I'll talk a little bit about the other 2 colorways that have been that have come out since this one. There's another black colorway that's very similar to this, and then there's a World Cup colorway that just released. As of the filming of this video, it released yesterday, and it's really cool looking. So as far as colorway goes, you guys know I'm a huge fan of black boots. I think they look awesome. I do like color boots as well, but black boots are so cool. The gold speckle that you get in this upper is so sick, and it really kind of, when you see it in the light, it does a really cool kind of glow effect almost. And then you've got the gold coming up through the heel almost in this like starlight looking, like almost Milky Way type deal. And then obviously the gold sole plate here. So for me, this is easily an 8.5 out of 10 colorway. I think they look exceptional on feet. They're super dope on feet. You guys will see tons of B-roll footage of them, and especially with a white grip sock or a white under sock and then black kit or black tights or something, they look really clean. Super ninja looking tight boots. So that's awesome. 8.5 out of 10 for the colorway for sure. Durability, really quick, we'll run over that as well. So far, again, the other boot actually has a little bit of scuff marks here on the sole plate where that's my left shoe, so that's often where I hit like crosses and stuff, so I'll get a lot of scuff marks like on this part as I'm coming and kicking. But as you can see, there's a little bit of wear in that gold sole plate. Obviously, all of these chrome bottom shoes come with a little warning that says, this will wear over time as you wear them. Yeah, no duh, especially when you're playing on something like this that's an artificial pitch. But other than that, I mean, there's no separation on the upper. There's a tiny little mark there, scuff mark there. The sole plate looks totally clean, other than obviously those pieces of gold that have kind of flaked off. And then there's a couple parts of the upper where I've been stepped on that just have a tiny little marking, but nothing, like no holes, nothing that affects the performance obviously at all. So as far as durability goes, and I've worn these a ton, especially this last week and a half or so in the postseason when we're doing individual sessions, 1v1s, lots of really sharp cutting, moving, making tackles and stuff. Like, these get beat to hell and they're holding up really well. Like, there's no loss in elasticity of this hypo-knit lacing system and collar area, and I really think these are going to last me a long time, which is super exciting because they're so good and so comfortable. So for me, durability, I'll just give it an 8.5 out of 10. Like, really solid. Not the best I've ever seen, but that remains to be seen. So 8.5 for me is like about the highest you can get on durability, just because it's all going to depend on how often you wear your boots and stuff. What else do we want to talk about? If we've gotten to this part of the video and you have other things that you want me to talk about, leave them in the comments section down below. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Exciting. What else? Oh, let's talk about sizing. So sizing, I would go true to size. If you are somebody, and here's why I would go true to size. So true to size puts my toe literally right on the end of this boot. Like, it is shoved right up on the end of the boot, and it did take a little bit of break-in time just because it was a laceless boot. They want it to be as snug as possible. As you break it in and as you wear it in, it sort of gets to the upper echelon of where the boot's willing to stretch, and that's something that I think is really important. It is absolutely perfect fitting, and that's why I would say go true to size, especially because it's a laceless boot. I'd say if these had laces on them, you might be able to get away with going half a size up if you wanted to, but I really wouldn't recommend it just because they fit so perfectly, and as a laceless boot, you want the most snug and tight fit. go with what's best for the length first, and then decide whether you want the wide fit or the standard fit. This is the wide foot variation. I don't actually know what the difference in millimeter width is, whether it's in the sole plate or whether it's in the amount of material in the upper. So it allows you to kind of like spill over the upper or spill over the sole plate a little bit more. That could be what sort of the wide fit is, but that remains to be said. I'm not actually sure. It's just a distinction that you can find on the New Balance website, or in certain like Unisport or Pro Direct will actually give you an option of whether you want the wide one or the not wide one. But as far as sizing goes, just go true to size. Make sure you do that. It's really, really awesome, and they fit beautifully well. Final thoughts on the New Balance Tekela version 4. These are, in my opinion, one of the best, I'd say the top, at least in what I like, these are my favorite laceless boots of all time. That's a huge, huge thing to say. These fall just ahead of Speed Flow, which I like a little bit. I know it sounded like I like Speed Portal a little bit more. I like the lockdown a little bit more on Speed Portal, but I like the feel of the Speed Flow better. Both sole plates are incredible on those two boots, but just as far as how exceptional the lockdown is in this laceless boot, these are my favorite laceless boots of all time to date. I think that's where we end the video, because they are awesome. My overall rating for this boot has got to be 8.75 out of 10. 8.75 out of 10 for these. They are that good. I love them. I would wear them pretty much anywhere. Haven't quite gotten up the courage to wear them in games yet, just because they're laceless, but I would rock these in training any day of the week. They are fantastic. And at this point, it's really just a mental thing to get over to wear them in games. So that might be coming pretty soon. Hope you guys enjoyed that 1 month review. If you guys do like 1 month reviews, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. As always, be awesome, take care. I'll see you guys in the next video.